Well, good morning, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us today for our Wednesday Connect series. We're very excited to have Jamie Bozzi join us today, and we're going to be talking about pandemic puppies, a big topic for a lot of people. So first, I wanted to introduce myself. My name is Nancy Walters. I'm the Executive Director of the La Jolla Community Center. And if you're new to the Community Center, we are a nonprofit organization that serves adults and seniors through the community. We provide programs and services that promote lifelong learning, wellness, and friendship. And of course, during the pandemic, we have gone virtual, so all of our programs are available on our website and more information about them as well. It's my pleasure to introduce Jamie Bozzi. Jamie has been a highly credentialed and professional dog trainer and behavior consultant for over 20 years. She got her start in dog training during therapy dog work at a psychiatric hospital with her two rescue dogs. From there, she built a business and operated 5 dog training boutiques in San Diego. Jamie served on the board of directors for the Certification Council for Pet Dog Trainers. She is considered a subject matter expert and helps create and review the test questions for the national exam for both training and behavior. Jamie's passion is dog sports, competing in agility, lure coursing, scent detection, and treibball. She has most recently become an MAR search dog handler and helps owners find missing pets. For further information, you can visit her website, which is smrtdog, it's a little short for smart, smrtdog.com. So please help me welcome Jamie Bozzi.
Thank you very much. Thank you to the La Jolla Community Center. Thank you, Nancy. Thank you, Barbara. It's great to be here. So I'm going to talk just a little bit about pandemic puppies, and we're going to go into basic training too. A lot of this crosses over. So a lot of things that apply to puppies also apply to basic training with adult dogs. Basics. So with puppies, one of the most important things about puppies, especially during the pandemic, we get a lot of questions about separation anxiety because we're home a lot. And there's really a difference between separation anxiety and frustration intolerance. Separation anxiety is more like a disorder, a panic attack, just like in people, that type of anxiety. Frustration intolerance is more sort of just not getting their way, not knowing how to handle short times that you're apart. That can easily be solved with confinement training, especially if you start early on. So confinement training, both for puppies and adult dogs, is pretty important. Confinement training can be very creative, doesn't always have to mean a crate. That could be a crate, could be a playpen, could be an exercise pen. Exercise pens are usually consisting of several panels. What's really nice about the exercise pens is you can make them smaller or larger. You can take panels away and you can add panels so that you can make everything larger. That's my favorite way to potty train because we can really confine the space for the dog early on for the puppy. Puppies don't want to eliminate where they eat or sleep, so they'll usually not soil themselves. So if you make that area small enough, they'll learn to hold it. And then gradually, as they get better and better, you can increase the panels and make their space larger, but you're not giving them that large, huge space, the entire space of the house, because that's too much room. And we want to set them up for success. So if we limit their choices, they can make better decisions and they can learn to hold it much quicker. So confinement's really important also, even for adult dogs. If they go to the vet, if they go to the groomer, usually they're in crates or some kind of confinement area behind a baby gate. So if you get your puppy or dog comfortable now to create training or confinement training, you really have an advantage later. Traveling in the car, if you want to stay at a hotel, all of that. Dog sports especially, anytime we're involved in dog sports, confinement training is a requirement. Dogs have to be able to be quiet in crates, whether at the show or in your car, in your vehicle. So also if you have a really energetic hyper puppy or hyper dog, crates help teach settle and relax very, very early on, so they don't struggle with that later. Just like human babies, that we teach them to self-soothe. So that's important for dogs as well. And if you have a shy or timid dog, crates can actually help build confidence. Those confinement areas, you can play all types of crate games and other fun confinement exercises and drills to help them enjoy that space. So you can feed all the meals in the space, you can play games in it, you can teach them how to go in and out. That then can transfer to doorways, right? Having some self-control and impulse control at doorways. It teaches those really great basic manners at doorways very early on. A lot of the exercise pens now have little doors. So you can start actually training door manners that way, when they're younger. So that's fantastic. Common behaviors we see a lot. This is both in puppies and adult dogs. People ask a lot about loose leash walking, that everything else is pretty good, but once they get outside the house and we start walking, that gets a little tricky. And my method is a little bit different. I don't teach a formal heel behavior. Most people don't really want a strict obedience heel. They're really just looking more for an enjoyable walk, or to say, just leave your arm in the socket when you go outside with your dog. So there are some very humane pieces of equipment that can help with that. There's no pull harnesses. There's a particular one on the market called the Wonder Walker, and that's one of my favorites. If we have a really, really large dog, maybe, and a smaller person, sometimes the gentle leader head collars, those are helpful. But what we start to do is we start to teach a focus cue with the dogs. So we teach the dogs how to check in with us, and we do that as they're younger, or we just do this as part of foundation training. So we teach an eye contact exercise, like it's just stationary. And then we will eventually move that to a moving eye contact exercise, and that is loose leash walking. So a dog cannot physically pass you and still maintain that eye contact. And so you do have loose leash walking. So there's really no cue attached to that. We don't use a command there. I teach all my dogs that if the leash is attached, you should probably be checking in with me, rather than making your own decisions that might not be good ones. So if, when in doubt, just ask me or check in. So we do a lot of check-in work. First, we do it off leash in the house, and then eventually we'll attach the leash and take that outside. We'll take it on the road. The other thing I do with puppies or young dogs, adolescent dogs, is we're going to teach them how to move with us. So loose leash walking is about movement and about connection. So a lot of times I'll get that connection off leash in the house, off leash in the fenced front yard or fenced backyard. And I get that puppy or dog moving with me, so that when I do actually attach the leash, that's sort of a no-brainer. They've already been doing it off leash. So just having the leash attached is really just the next step. They don't even realize the leash is there. So another really helpful behavior, one we get a lot of questions on, is recall. Right? I can't get my dog to come back to me. And for that, it's really important that it's always positive, right? Never ever call a dog to you or grab him and bring him to you and then punish him for that. That becomes no longer fun to come to you. So we really want to make recalls fun. And what we do with puppies, and we also do this with adult dogs, it's a great game and the whole family can get involved. It's called Puppy Ping Pong. It's PPP. So we're going to teach puppies that it's really fun to come to us, right? To get near us. Now, most people think of come as one behavior, just come to me. But recall, or the come cue, right? The come command it's really 3 behaviors in one. So it's a little tricky. It's like loose leash walking, that connection, that moving with you. That's a little bit more complicated than just to sit her down. There's more to that. It's more challenging for the dog. So come is basically 3 things, right? That's leave the distraction, leave the bush you're smelling, right? Leave that alone. That's 1. 2, run over to me as quickly as you can. And 3, I need to just sit close enough that if I needed to grab your collar, reach for you, or attach a leash, I could do that no problem. So what I tend to do with that behavior is I back chain it. I teach the last behavior first. So I teach the dog what sitting in front of me looks like. And I heavily reinforce that. So I use their name. So we do a really fun game with name recognition and eye contact. We talked about that before. These all kind of mesh together. So that eye contact game will actually improve your recall, because the dog is learning how to check in and that you're valuable. And that is really reinforcing to stay near you and to stay close to you and to come to you. We can also play, we kind of do these little backing up or backward walking games. Whereas we back up, the puppy follows us, or the adolescent dog or the young dog sort of follows us. And then we're sort of able with this game to ping pong the puppy around. We can ping pong between 2 people, 3 people. You can even play this game if you're by yourself. right? And that brings me to another sort of fun treat delivery. So if you're by yourself, how do I play puppy ping pong, right? I don't have a second person. I can absolutely call the dog to me, his name only. We're just going to use his name for the fun game. The puppy comes, the dog comes over, we give him a cookie, and then we toss a treat away, right? So we can actually reset the game. So you have to have cookies that you're comfortable tossing, but the toss, this is going to be a low, slow, underhand, like you're bowling type toss. We don't want to whip it like we're playing baseball. This is more of a bowling roll toss. So we can roll it really far away. You can actually get some round treats that roll away better, right? I have a whole list of recommended treats that work for all kinds of things, and really, really tiny treats. So you're not given a ton of food. You can make your food the size of a frozen pea and carrot. Those cookies, those rewards, those food treats that we're giving can actually be quite small, right? So you can do more repetitions and get some more training in without filling up your dog, even if it's a small dog. So that brings me to, and this is my favorite to talk about, treat delivery. So I call this room service or takeout, right? Room service is when we deliver the treat directly to the dog's mouth, right? We're feeding for position. That's usually if we're going to teach a sit or a down, we ask the dog to sit, and we're going to directly give that cookie right into his mouth. Takeout is where I'm going to toss the cookie away. You have to go run and get it. Now, I like takeout for a few different reasons. So I like room service when we're teaching like a stare, an implied sit stare, an implied down stay. I'm feeding for position. I want you to maintain that behavior, maintain the sit, maintain the down. When I do takeout, I'm tossing the treat away. Two reasons. One, if I have a really energetic, hyper dog, that helps them get moving, and that moving around helps kind of settle them down a little bit and help them focus a little bit better. Also, it gives me a chance to reset. So I've asked the dog for a behavior sit. If my dog is really, really good with the basics, say sit and down, I no longer have to feed sit or down. I'm actually going to feed the release. I'm going to feed that takeout, treat delivery. And then that way the dog has to come back, run back to me and figure out what was it that got the cookie. Was it a sit? Was it a down? Was it eye contact? Was it stand? And so we can really use treat delivery effectively. And so that's part of your mechanical skills, right? We want to be able to deliver treats quickly. That bowling toss is a mechanical skill. You can practice it easily. You can always practice it without the dog. If you feel you need more practice and you want to increase that skill level on that, on the treat delivery. The other thing about puppies that I hear a lot with the pandemic, especially, or younger dogs that people have gotten, is socialization. And so a lot of people think socialization is about exposure, and it is, but it's about the way in which you expose. So really crowded areas aren't the best socialization environments. For socialization, we really want to keep it's best to keep it short and sweet and not sort of overwhelm the dog. Just like people, sometimes, you might not like a crowded area. Not everybody's idea of fun is a really crowded street fair or a really crowded concert where you're, bumping into everybody. For a lot of dogs, that's pretty overwhelming and that's stressful. So if you feel you need to introduce your dogs, to crowds or different people, do it in a really gradual way. And don't spend a lot of time there. So socializing a dog to crowds or people is not going to a, huge, outdoor art show and then staying there for 5 hours. That's just too much. So that exposure should be in really short time frames. So you could, with puppies, you can get away with, you can go to Home Depot, you can go to Lowe's. There's lots of different smells there, lots of things to look at, but you keep that exposure really, that time frame is short, right? So you'd only go for a few minutes. Don't spend more than 5 or 10 minutes in a new location with a puppy. Maybe an adult dog, you could go a little bit longer, but keep it really short, end on a good note, bring their favorite toy, bring some food, really high value stuff that they normally don't get. We want to make all these new introductions and all these new places, we want to associate this with positive things, right? So really short exposure and lots of really high value fun stuff, and then go home. Now you could do, a couple of these in a day or go to a new location every day. I have a puppy myself. So what I'm doing with her is every day we go to a new place. So I find a park that has statues. Lots of puppies and dogs will bark at, inanimate objects that are not moving. They don't understand why the animal, the giant rabbit at the park that's bronze, is not moving. So one day will maybe be statues. The next day we'll go out to a park when maintenance is there. And maintenance could be leaf blowers, lawn mowers, gardeners, weed whackers, things like that. The next day we may try a very small construction site where maybe they're jackhammers, they're tearing up the road. I definitely, when I do exposure to loud noises or, big trucks, garbage trucks, things like that, I really watch the distance. So I expose the dog at a distance, not right next to it. I don't want to freak the dog out. I want them, again, to have a good experience. And I want them to learn that, stuff in the environment, the world is going to happen, right? But we're kind of trying to build environmental resilience. We want to build resilience in the dog. They don't have to like garbage trucks, right? They don't have to like leaf blowers and all these kind of noisy, strange objects. They just have to tolerate them and know that this is part of the world. This is part of, life, and they're okay. They're not going to kill us. It's just there. So I try to be creative, and every day or every other day, just try to take her to a new spot, bring lots of her favorite treats. She loves these little chicken meatballs that I bring. And we just have fun. So every time she looks at something new that she hasn't seen, hot dogs rain from the sky. So she's learning that everything in the environment is good. It's all good. There's nothing to worry about. There's nothing to be afraid of. If they're going to have a fear response or a startle response, that's normal. That's fine. Not everybody is okay with things the first time out. She's learning. So if she balks it or kind of shies away, that's all right. We make it really short. We have some cookies. We go home. We try again in a couple of days. Not a big deal. But we're keeping everything really short and sweet. And I just try to get creative. And if you go to a park, there's lots of different things happening. There could be skateboarders, baby strollers, bicycles, garbage trucks going by, construction vehicles going by, motorcycles, lots of different things in the environment for them to, this is actually called the look at that game. It's similar to the eye contact game that I mentioned earlier, but I want to teach puppies, young dogs, that everything in the environment is good. What else was I going to tell you? Oh, you can find some really creative places. Again, sometimes if they're really, really young pups, you might even be able to get away with some of the stores like Target or, Walmart. For that, I'd recommend using like a baby stroller or even not a crate, but a basket. The carts that you go in the store with, but you could actually put something underneath so they're a little bit comfortable. And again, just keep that exposure really, really short. And I'd say the other common training that I get is a stay behavior, like a stay or a wait cue. Now, some of that we talked a little bit earlier about, like, doors, and it's like boundary training and teaching them sort of impulse control around doors. Now that could be a front door, that could be a back door, that could be a gate to the backyard, that can also be the car door or a hatchback. And so I tend to use not a stay cue, but instead I use a release cue. So when I ask my dog to sit or to down, that's actually an implied sit stay or an implied down stay. I don't use a stay cue. So I use sit and then a release cue. So I ask my dog to sit, and in my head, I would go 1 banana, 2 banana, 3 banana, release. And so that release cue is actually followed by, again, that takeout treat delivery. I'm gonna do my bowling. I'm gonna bowl that treat away and have the puppy or the dog come back and try that behavior again. So that's the way I build up sort of an implied sit stay or an implied down stay. So we build duration, and we build distractions, and we build distance. Those are the 3 Ds. And I would say those are probably the most common training questions I get asked about potty training / confinement training, the loose leash walking, the recall, and probably the sit stays and down stays. And as far as there's some other things, and that would be more in the behavior realm. So we get into more behavior modification, not just basic training, then that is more fear, anxiety, and aggression issues. So if the behavior falls into one of those three categories, that's really no longer basic training. That's sort of a behavior issue that we need to address. And that can be sort of separate. Now, some of the games or some of the basic training is similar when we're going to work behavior cases, because we need a starting point for the dogs, and we do need a behavior repertoire. We're not looking to punish them because they're scared, right? We don't punish anxiety. We also really shouldn't punish aggression. Most aggression is fear-based or anxiety-based. And so we actually do want to do a lot of confidence building. We want to teach dogs, what to do when you don't know what to do, right? And that's what training is all about. So all of those basic foundation behaviors, a lot of those we're going to use if we're going to do any kind of behavior casework as well, right? So it's always great to do the basics. It's always wonderful to do foundation work. You're less likely to have behavior issues if you do have these basic foundation skills that we talked about. Does anybody have any questions? That was a lot of information.
That was, thanks for that, Jamie. A question, not a question, but
yeah.
What is it about the mailman that gets dogs just going?
I love it. That's a good one. Well, what the mailman is, guess what? So the mailman shows up, the dog barks, rrr, rrr, and guess what happens after the mailman delivers the mail? What does he do? He leaves. And so he leaves, and your dog goes, same time, same place, same bad channel. We're going to do this tomorrow, right? So your dog actually thinks my barking makes him go away. He's going away naturally because he's just going to the next house to deliver mail. But this is why this is such a tricky behavior for people. So what we want to do is we want to make another behavior more reinforcing than barking. So we can usually teach the dog to do something else instead of bark. We just call that a replacement behavior or an incompatible behavior. Like some dogs we teach to go grab a toy or hold a toy. There's a lot of dogs that will not bark while holding their favorite toy. So we've got some options there, but it just depends on the dog and what they like to do.
Got it. Thank you for that.
Barbie, I have a
go ahead.
question. Yeah. You were talking about the tossing the treat with the 1 banana, 2 bananas. So when the dog returns, you would give, in your case, you give the vocal command, not a hand command. So maybe you could address the voice command versus hand command. So I assume, like, if I was going to toss that treat to Scarlett, she comes back and I want her to repeat a stay.
Mm-hmm.
So I just wondered, would I just say the word stay and count, or what?
So it's up to you. So some people use, that's a great question. Some people use verbal, some people use visual cues, other people combine them. I'm a big fan of verbal cues. I do use visual cues for some things. It just depends. There is an argument for visual cues, and dogs will read our body language right before they will try to pay attention to spoken word, because they don't speak English and we don't speak dog. So the hand signals can be effective. I think if you're going to use a hand signal, then just use the hand signal, for stay. Right. We just tend to be very verbal. So we tend to do both at the same time. And I would just say what it's called in science overshadowing. So if you do this, stay. So I've said stay and shown a hand signal at the exact same time. The visual cue, the hand signal, will overshadow the verbal because dogs don't speak English. So just know that a lot of people think, oh, my dog actually knows both because I'm saying them at the same time. That's not actually what happens. They're really going to learn the visual cue. And we can test that by just having the dog come to you and saying them both and see what he follows. Most dogs will follow a visual cue. I like verbal. So I tend to say, if I'm going to use that, I would say stay, then followed by a hand signal. So it's always sit, you pause for a split second, and then you do your visual cue, sit or down. Always the verbal first, pause for just a split second, because you don't want that overshadowing to occur. That's a great question.
Thank you, Barbara. Any additional questions? I know we have Susan or Jerry. If you have a question, you're free to use the chat function, or you can unmute and ask Jamie directly. And I don't see any coming up. But if anybody wants additional information, you can find it at Jamie's website. It's smrtdog.com. So it's smart without the A, smrtdog.com. And you can find a lot more information there. We'll also be emailing out the presentation, and we'll include Jamie's contact information there for anyone if you have additional questions for her. So any additional questions? I don't see any.
I actually have one more if you don't
Go
mind. I'm sorry, but training the dog off leash, like in the yard. So this might help others as well. You know, so I don't have a leash, but I want her to be paying attention to me without a leash. Would I simply walk around the yard with the treat and stop, or how would you recommend I do that?
Yeah, so for off-leash training, again, a lot of this also I think depends on the age of the dog. So if you have a really, really young dog, you have to understand that you're sort of working against the environment, right? And so training is about, we want the focus on the handler. And the opposite of that is like, say, scent detection work, you know, we want the focus to be on the environment. And what happens is, you know, the environment a lot of times for young dogs outweighs us because it's just more exciting. So if you can be really creative and be really exciting, you have to be sort of more reinforcing and more rewarding and more exciting than the environment. Now, you can do that through management. But yeah, I wouldn't necessarily walk around with cookies in my hand, right? And the only reason being, it depends on the dog, but I want to be careful because I don't want to create a dog who says, show me the money, right? I don't want a dog to say to me, I don't see a treat bag. I don't see any cookies in your hand, so I'm not doing it. It's not a training session. I sort of want to blend in that training session and make it more real world. So I want to get creative about food and toys. I'd like to be able to use food and toys interchangeably. There are a lot of interactive toys that also can be food treat dispensers too. So I get creative. The more rewards you have and the more reinforcement that you can use with your dog, the better you'll get that attention, the better you'll be able to get that off-leash connection. But it definitely starts off-leash in a confined area, like the front yard or the backyard. Play games, play hot potato, right? Hot potato doesn't require food. Like you run away and have your dog chase you. You be part of the game, right? So there's a few creative things you can do. Can you bring food and simply play puppy ping pong out there? Yes. I would have probably a cue or a command that meant, I really need you to come over here now, right? That sounds more like recall, maybe work more than off leash. Yeah. What is your goal for off leash? You just want her to pay attention when you need her to.
I just want her to pay attention to me. My thought is I'm going to take her on either I'm not going to have the leash or I'm going to have a longer leash.
Right.
I'm going to walk around the front and backyard and want to work on her paying attention to me.
Yeah. So what I'll usually do is I'll start it in an enclosed area, like a safely fenced, secure front or backyard. I will have cookies on me, but I don't have them in my hand. Like I have some kind of bait bag or, so if they're all over me, like, oh my God, you have cookies, I'm not giving any cookies. I didn't ask you to come over. I didn't call you. You don't get them for looking cute. No freebies. So I'll kind of wait till the dog is, and I'll also try to do it when they're hungry, when I know it's like before maybe a meal time. But I'll have some high value stuff. I'm not using dry kibble. I'm using stuff they're usually never going to get unless you're working with me. I'm fabulous. I have string cheese. I have chicken meatballs. I have turkey bacon. I have stuff you're never going to find in the environment. So you could try. That's a maybe. I'm a sure thing. The environment, you may or may not get the ant covered hot dog on the sidewalk. I'm a sure thing. And I'm awesome. So I would just periodically, when I called the dog, if they came over, especially if they were into something, sniffing something, and I got their attention, I would reward that. Now, attention may not be coming fully over. Attention may just be, they literally, took their head out of the bush, turned around and looked at me, and I'm going to drop a cookie at my foot. I'm going to say, that was a good choice. I asked you for attention. You gave it to me. Now, it wasn't right next to me, but I'm letting that dog know very early on, hey, if I say something and you look and you pay attention, it's going to be fabulous. And then eventually I'll get them coming back. But that's how a dog realizes, I should probably kind of pay attention. She's got some cool stuff going on there. Now, the other trick I'll do too was two things, is I will take my dogs into big off-leash areas, just like a big field, but I will have them on a long line in a harness for safety, right? And
Yeah.
that harness is attached to the back, and I am simulating off-leash work. When I feel like it's gone very well in different types of, backyard, front yard, I will then move to outside in really big open park areas where there's not a lot of distractions, but I use a long line. I use, 10, 20, I usually don't use more than 20 feet. And I just let them roam around and play, and I will sort of periodically play that, call into me game again. There's one
Okay.
but I try to catch them when they're not paying attention to see what they'll do. And that will tell me kind of where to go, where to go forward with that training.
Great.
Does that make
Thank
sense?
you. Thank you. Yes, I have a 6-foot leash. Just considering just doing a little bit in the front and backyard, just to work with her on that.
Yeah, I always start there, and I make sure that I'm feeling, so the rule of thumb is sort of, if you're getting 80% of the time, you're getting her to check in, either look back at you or come in towards you. If you're getting 80% or better, it's time to raise that criteria and try something a little more difficult. But if we're
not there yet. We're
right,
not there yet, Jean.
Right. And a lot of people try to push and raise criteria too much, too fast, too far, and they wonder why the dog is failing. So you've got to keep, you've got to keep your expectations. Yeah. If you just do these little baby steps, you'll actually move your training faster if you go slower in the beginning. It's just sort of having the patience in the beginning.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you,
Sorry,
Jamie.
Nancy.
No problem. I was wondering if the cheese in the pocket trick works with humans. Have you tried that before? I was thinking about it. I don't know.
Yeah, chocolate, unless it can't be too hot of a day, but maybe chocolates, yeah.
Wonderful. Well, Jamie, it was a pleasure to have you join us for Wednesday Connect. Thank you so much for your wonderful presentation. I hope you all learned a lot. Again, we'll be sending out the presentation to everyone for review, and as well as Jamie's contact information. So thank you again, Jamie. Have a great day, and see you all soon, hopefully.
Thank you very much. Thanks for having me.